How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to give you a quick rundown of how I set up my belt squat. In case you haven't been following my weekly training logs, I had shoulder surgery on November 11th of 2019. I'm about 10 weeks after that surgery now, but what I noticed before I went into surgery is that I was getting kind of anxious about how I was going to handle training post-surgery. Obviously, I knew I wouldn't be able to really use my arm, my right shoulder specifically, very much. And I figured that just overhead movements were just out of the question, but I wanted a way to still be able to do lower body movements. So then I set out trying to maybe buy a belt squat. I looked a lot at the Sorinex J squat. I got a lot of inspiration from that model, and I liked that model. And I probably would have owned it, but when I reached out to Sorinex, they said that it was a 12-week lead time, which means that I would have gotten the belt squat now instead of when I needed it immediately post-surgery. So I started looking at other options. Most other options were a little bit expensive. I really liked the Squat Max MD. I really liked the Rogue Rhino. There were, of course, some cheaper options out there that really wasn't too interested in, mainly because they were just so big. I didn't want something that was going to take up a lot of space. But I knew I had one thing, and I had the lever arm from Rogue. You can see behind me. And I figured, what can I do? What do I have right now so that I can use my Rogue lever arms to facilitate belt squats? So I'm going to show you how I ended up setting that up, and I'll take you through some variations that I've had, and finally show you what I'm currently using today to perform belt squats. So this is the version 1, and again, it all began with setting up the trolley arms, basically dropping all the way down. And I say it later in the video, but I just wanted to specify the pin, the T-handle pin on the trolley arm is actually in the very top of the very bottom of the west side hole spacing. So the beginning of that 1-inch spacing. And I just take the handle down and go ahead and just pin it on the side. So this is how it all started. This was the first setup that I ended up doing. So we'll just call it version 1.0. And what I've got is one of my trolley arm handles here, the trolley all the way down, and the pin is in the west side hole spacing, the very top of the west side hole spacing. And then I just threw my dip belt through the end on the bushing at the end of the trolley arm. This worked all right, but some of the stuff I didn't like was, one, I didn't like that it was just one side loaded. I don't think it really made a difference in how it actually felt on my hip, but I just did not like the fact that it was loaded significantly heavy, because you can load belt squats, especially lever arm style belt squats, pretty heavy because you're only picking up, I don't know, like 70% of the load, 60% of the load maybe. And I didn't like that the chain was going through the bushing, because I was scared that it would damage the bushing. In order to compensate for that, I would always pull all the slack out super slow, and then make sure that as I lifted off the ground that I was not rotating or moving back and forth to wear out that bushing. The version 2 basically consisted of adding the landmine and an additional handle. The reason I came up with the landmine is because I was just kind of meandering and staring at other pieces of equipment I had in my gym, and I was just curious to see if it would work, and it ends up working like a champ. It's very stable as well. I was a little bit concerned that there'd be some side-to-side wobble, but there's not. It does move from side to side, but because the other side is on a fixed point, it doesn't really affect it much. I also ended up moving the handles, and I tried to remain consistent in my setup for this, and the way I did that is I set up the handle closest to the rack first, and then I set up the second handle to basically butt right up against that. So that brings us up to version 2. So in version 2, I added the landmine so that I wasn't picking it up from the ground. I actually had it from an elevated position. And when I picked it up, I would just take the landmine and set it up on this handle. And I added the second trolley arm handle. So this ended up working out pretty well for quite a while. Some of the stuff that didn't change on version 2 or 1.1 or whatever we want to call it is that the chain was still going through this bushing, which again, I wasn't a huge fan of, but I hadn't quite thought of a workaround for this quite yet. So it's about this time that I was starting to be able to actually use my glued ham developer, and I noticed that there was a piece on the glued ham developer that looked eerily similar to the connection piece from the J squat. And again, taking my inspiration from another piece of equipment, I decided to give it a try. But the piece that I found that looked a lot like the J squat piece was the stabilizer foot that connects the box to the strip so that the box doesn't move back and forth when you're using the GHD. The other nice part about it being used on the GHD is that when I'm not using it, it stores nicely actually on the GHD itself. So if you have an Echo GHD and you look at this stabilizer piece, you'll notice that there's a small difference between what you have and what I have. Took a 5/8 hitch pin and I substituted the 5/8 inch bolt that used to go through here with the hitch pin. The reason, twofold. One, this would always get in the way during belt squatting. It was just kind of annoying. It would always just be in the way. And two, because it also offers a nice and smooth, not threaded, area for the belt to actually hook into with a normal carabiner. So the setup is as simple as removing the belt, removing the landmine, and then taking the actual stabilizer piece and using the landmine to connect it in one of the 5/8 inch holes, and then using the hitch pin to secure it in the second position. After that, just take a carabiner, hook it on, and you just hook in and out. So at this point, I'm not even sure which version we're on, but this actually worked really well. But for Christmas, my brother, who is a CNC operator and a fabricator, along with my dad, who owns a fabrication business, they wanted to get me something to help me out. The whole idea was I wanted to stop using the handles because I didn't like the fact that there was weight loaded here and there was weight loaded here. And sometimes the holes would be off by just a little bit, which brings me to almost what I'm currently using today for belt squats. So I am basically just removing the handles one by one, putting them away, and you're going to see the brand new piece that I have that replaces both of the handles. Crazy awesome piece, very easy to load. The only real critique I have about this thing is the holes were made to exactly a 5-inch diameter, which fits the pin perfectly, which means that there's no play, which can be frustrating at times when you're trying to install it. So we're just going to widen those holes out just a little bit. So what they ended up making me was a loading pin that they used an old barbell, an old recycled barbell. They cut the sleeves off, they welded them on. I think it's at like a 3-degree angle or something. There's some sort of upward angle, so you don't have to actually apply collars once you have the weight loaded. It has 2 holes that go all the way through, but really you only need one of them. I think one of the ideas I have for my brother is to take this back hole and make it a 1-inch hole so that you have a 5/8 inch hole and a 1-inch hole, and maybe he can start making these and they would accommodate either Monster Series, Sorinex, or Monster Light Series, which is 5/8. Not to mention that Rep Fitness is coming out with these, not to mention that planing companies coming out, to include Titan as well. So lots of options. So I ended up starting to use this. I love this thing. It's super easy to load. It looks cool. It's got plenty of loadable space. I can actually get a good lift in using bumper plates. There's only one thing I've added since then, and that was my Rogue multi-belt. So I ended up replacing the old dip belt with the Rogue multi-belt, but that's what I'm currently using today. So this is my setup right now. So that's my video. I appreciate you guys watching. And if you like these kind of videos, please give me a like, subscribe, and then pay attention, because I'm going to start releasing these more and more as time comes on and as I find time to actually come out and do it. I would appreciate if you also hit the little bell so that every week you get my weekly training log or my weekly training vlog notice. And I appreciate you guys watching this video. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave them in the drop box below. If you want any information on your ability to order maybe this product, just let me know, and I'll get you in contact with my brother who fabricated them. And until then, I'll see you guys next time.